Welcome to a short video on the description of bonds and the calculation of current yield. Now, bonds represent debt and is one of the two ways in which firms obtain capital. The other, of course, is equity. Bonds are generally less risky than stocks, therefore the return is generally lower. Now, bonds do have risk, both price risk and default risk. Default risk basically states that the company that issued the debt goes bankrupt. Now, the United States Treasury security are riskless in a sense. The U.S. government has never defaulted on their obligation to pay interest. Now, during the War of 1812, they did come close, though. Now, terms you must be familiar with when discussing bonds. The first one is face or par value, which in this case is $1,000. It's coupon or fixed interest rate or payment. Now, coupon gets its name from the fact that bond lenders used to rip out a page in a coupon book and send it in for payment. Now, these payments are generally twice a year, so if the fixed interest rate is 10%, like on your computer screen, 10% is the annual rate, and a person would receive $50 every 6 months. This first date is called the issue date, and then when the bond becomes mature, it's the maturity date. Now, to keep it simple, most textbooks will just use N or N per if you're using Excel. In the real world, we would use the actual date of issue, the date of maturity, and a third date referred to as the settlement date, or when you would take possession of the bond. Now, if you look at your Hewlett-Packard 10B2 calculator, here are the 5 parts that we'll be using on the bond. If you take a look at the top, those 5 time value of money functions, and we can use those to determine the calculations we have for bonds in the coming lecture. Now, I previously mentioned the 2 risks of a bond ownership, price and default. All bonds have price risk. As soon as a bond is issued, if the interest rates change, the seasoned bond will change value. Now, look at this equation from the chapter on interest rates. Now, this R star and IP generally is a treasury security, treasury bill. R star is just a rate of interest in a world without inflation, and IP is inflation premium. When we start looking at bonds greater than 1 year, treasury securities like treasury notes and bonds, we add a maturity risk premium, which is the last part, the MRP, which is generally about a tenth of a percent or 10 basis points for every year. So a 10-year note would be 1 extra percentage point, so what a 1-year treasury would be. The 2 in the middle, default risk premium and liquidity premium, usually are dealing with corporate bonds. Default because corporate bonds do default on occasion. Now, to determine the current rate, it's a simple calculation. I'm going to go to the next one. Here's current yield. And if we take a look at on your screen here, you have a bond, and it's 2 different numbers here. You'll see a 935.83 and an 1100. The 1100 shows me that the bond is currently trading at a premium. Now, a premium is a bond considered to be a premium when its price is greater than face value, and again, face value was 1,000. The 935.83 was a discount bond. A bond is considered to be a discount bond when the price is less than face value. Now, if we take a look just above right here, we can see the simple calculation of a current yield. It's nothing more than the annual payment divided by the current price. In this case, $80 divided by the $935.83 gives us a current yield of 8.55. That would be the issue of a new bond at that time, and I think most people would rather have $85.50 than $80. Therefore, since the new bond issued at 8.55 for $1,000, it's going to be $4,000. This one has to be sold at a discount. If I pull my calculator up here, we can do the other one if we'd like. So if I took the $80 and divided it by the 1100, we should see that it will be less than 8%, or 0.727 or 7.27%. Now, one last important note. Current yield is not the yield an investor would receive if he or she purchased the bond. This is the yield to maturity or the yield to call.